Well, good morning. It's quite cold here in the mountains this morning, and we're a couple of months away from winter. I would say in the next few months we'll have snow here, and snow in this region from here up is absolutely magnificent, especially around the waterfalls and the feeder creeks, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Behind me here, if you can just see over there somewhere, this is what we call feeder creeks now, or streams. Every waterfall has one, and in this particular area of the mountains there's 3 waterfalls and a couple of smaller ones, but the water has to come from somewhere, and this is one of the feeder creeks that feeds a lot of actually feeds the 3 waterfalls that are further down the track through the bush here. Now, I was here probably 5 days ago and took some images of one of the falls further down, and on the way here I noticed that these small creeks and like little rivers that are actually running down the escarpment down into the main waterfalls, and that's why we call them feeder creeks or feeder streams for our waterfalls. But I noticed that there's some really good composition here, and looking at it, I'm going to have to get down here. There's a bit of an embankment down here. I'll climb down there and set up. The tripod will be in the water, of course. But if you're out photographing waterfalls, have a look around on your way to that waterfall, because every waterfall that I know of has some sort of feeder creek or feeder stream feeding the water to it. It doesn't matter where you are, every waterfall has one. Sometimes they're easy to get to. This one isn't too bad to get to. There's others that are moderately hard, and then there's others that are just virtually impossible to get to, so without a helicopter. But the ones that I have found recently have been fairly easy to get to, and they offer up some really good photographic opportunities or composition. Once again, you're a photographic detective and you're looking for composition. So remember that when you're on your way to a waterfall, always look around and look up and just look around the environment. Charlie Chaplin once said that if you're looking for a rainbow, you'll never find it if you're looking at the ground. And it's the same with this. I mean, as I said, I spotted this the other day and I thought, that could be a good possibility. It could throw up some good images for me. So I'll get down the embankment here and I'll set up and I'll explain to you the composition and the settings of what I'm going to do here this morning. But it's around about 4 degrees at the moment here. Very windy up the top of the mountain, but yeah, bring on winter. Well, I finally climbed down the embankment here, and it's a very close combat here. But as you can see, I have this fallen tree. It's a massive gum tree that's fallen down here many years ago, just through old age, I should imagine. This is old growth forest here, or old growth bush, and they haven't had any fires through here for many years. And the bush has just taken over. This is a rather spectacular environment. But this tree obviously has come down many years ago from the embankment and stretched right across and wraps around the top over here. We have filtered light coming through the trees, but if you can see the scene that I'm looking at here, it's very appealing, and basically I'll be shooting under the fallen tree because that will absolutely distract from the image, really. It'd probably destroy the image. but by getting down low, I'm able to shoot under the tree. In actual fact, there's another tree behind there that's fallen down. So I've got two I've got to deal with, and this is all about looking for the composition. So through here, I've got these two little pools. I've got three sections. So this is a layered image. I think last time I was here, I was speaking about layers in your image, and basically that's what I've got here. We've got the water running here. We've got those two little cave things happening in the rocks. We've got the water coming over. Then we've got another small feeder stream up the top, which is actually feeding this one. Geez, you just got to love nature, how it all works. But I'll set the camera up. I've had a good look around. I know the composition I want. I know that I've got to shoot under the trees. Basically, yeah, that's the shot. One other thing, you probably can't see it in the video camera, but just behind the fallen tree, there's this, like these very fine ferns hanging down, and they're moving in the breeze. Look, what I'll have to do, I would say I'd have to clone them out in Photoshop, I think. I don't like to do that, but I think it'll probably be a bit distracting. So that's the only issue I've really got here with this shot. So I'll set it up and I'll explain to you what I'm going to do. Okay, I've got my first composition set up here, and as you can see, I've had the tripod down very low. I'm currently shooting at f11 and my shutter speed is 8 seconds, or my exposure time is 8 seconds. Now, that's a little bit long, but looking at the image that I just took then, it looks pretty good to me at 8 seconds. I've got the Nissy circular polarizer on, and that's just bringing out the green on the rocks over on this side, on your left side, and a bit of the greenery on the right. That's one good thing about a circular polarizer. I think if you're into this type of photography, that's the first filter that I suggest you buy, and buy a good one too, because it just makes the image so much better, and you can bring out all those beautiful colours in post-edit if you're shooting in RAW, of course. But I'll take a few more shots and might move the camera a bit and just sort of muck around with the composition here. This is very what I call intimate landscape photography, or intimate waterfall photography, where you can get up close, get down low. I'm shooting fairly wide at 20mm, and that's giving me that flow in front of the camera. And looking at it once again, looking at the composition, I think they'll work. I'll just see what this shot's like. Very peaceful here, you know. And here's the shot here. Yeah, beautiful. I'll be able to bring those colours back out. I might play around with the white balance here, just to see what I can get by adjusting the white balance. Sometimes I shoot in auto white balance, and I'm doing that today, but I might just play around with that and see what we can come up with. On to the next shot. Okay, people say, when should you take a portrait shot? Well, I usually say straight after the landscape shot. So in other words, you have your camera in the landscape orientation, you do that shot, and then you do the portrait shot. Now, as you can see here, I've got my camera set up in portrait mode, and I've angled the camera down, sort of like at a 45-degree angle. We'll do it that way, 45-degree angle that way. That way, the foreground is just the pure element of this image. So this is a three-dimensional figure or image. In other words, once again, layers. I've got the foreground here, the midground and the background. I don't have these trees overhanging. I actually really like this composition because it's very narrow and it's a natural leading line. I've got these beautiful red leaves that have fallen from the gum trees here in the water. Got nice browns, got green up the top. So this is what I'm saying, you try and get everything right in camera, 90% in camera, 10% on the computer. And this is what photography is all about. It's about immersing yourself into the environment and thinking that how can I make this shot, you know, one of the best shots I could possibly ever take. And if you have that mindset with this photography, or with any type of photography really, you'll come away with some really nice images. This particular image here I'll be putting on my website, and I will also most likely print this one out. It's quite amazing really when you just change a camera angle, how the image changes. I haven't moved, I've just moved the camera from landscape orientation to portrait orientation, and the image just looks absolutely fantastic. So the settings for this one basically are 4-second exposure, f11, ISO 50. I always shoot in ISO 50 here because I want the cleanest image possible with no noise, and basically I'm ready to fire. 2-second timer, and we'll see how that one comes out. Fantastic. I've put the camera in portrait orientation. I'm looking for f11, and that is spot on. As you can see with the light meter, the exposure is perfect. I'm at 4 seconds with f11. Now we'll take that shot, 2-second exposure. That's the actual scene I'm looking at, and we'll go from there. That's the final image. Well, that's the raw image, it's not the final image. Now, what we'll do, I'll try and show you the effect of the Nissi circular polarizer. You should be able to see it on the camera, on the video camera. Let's see if I can do this and see if you can see the colour, the change. You can see the change there. You can see how the shine is on the rocks now because I've turned the circular polarizer all the way down. But when I go back, when I close it like that, you can see how well these things work, and it's bringing out the red in those leaves in the water. So I do that and then crank it back. You'll see how these circular polarizers work. Now, settings remain the same, 4 seconds, f11, ISO 50. Everything's spot on with the composition, and everything is spot on with the focusing. We'll take one more shot there. And there it is. That's the unedited version. It's not all that difficult, not all that hard, but you've really got to get your composition right. Now, what I would like to do now is I will show you that focusing technique. Okay, so we're just in standard focusing mode here, manual focus. I'll hit the button which will enlarge the image, as you can see there now. So if I move the exposure ring on my lens, see how it goes out of focus. So we bring it back up like so, spot on there. We enlarge it again, or magnify it I should say. Now that's at 10 times. We focus again. Perfect. We go back to normal, and we take the shot. With photography, light changes all the time. It changes dramatically. Now, I was at 4 seconds just not even 3 minutes ago. Now at 6 seconds, because the light, some clouds come over, and it's reducing my shutter speed. So we'll take that one again. I'm just playing around with the circular polarizer, because that's another thing too. You don't want too much polarization, because it plays around with your colours too much within the image. I might take another one. Right, now I've slightly overexposed that by half a stop. What that means is that I'm exposing for the highlights. In actual fact, I don't want the darks to be too dark, but I don't want the highlights to be too bright. So I've exposed about half a stop overexposed, or towards the right on my histogram. So it's giving me now 6 seconds f11, and I'm half a stop overexposed, which isn't too bad. Well, I'll take that shot. And then what I'll do, I'll show you how I'll play around with the exposure or the metering. It's not too bad. I've retained detail in the water, as you can see. Okay, let's play around with this. I'm at one stop over now. Bring it down into the middle. Now I'm at just under 3 second exposure at f11. I'll take that shot. Now the reason why this is happening is because the light is changing as I'm talking to you. Now the scene in front of me is a little bit brighter, so that means my exposure is going to be a bit faster. So the light is changing all the time, and you have to be very aware of that. So just a few things there to keep in mind when you're doing this style of photography. Still a beautiful scene though. It's been a terrific morning here, really. It looks like it's going to be a good day. Okay, I've moved closer to the little waterfall here, or the feeder creek or feeder stream, and it's just a really nice scene, and it's really a really intimate sort of scene here. And people sometimes associate landscape photography with big wide vistas and wide angle lenses, and that's true to some respect. In some respect it's true, but sometimes it's good to pick out certain elements, and in a situation like this you can't help yourself but to get the camera down low and focus in tight on some really nice rock and water flow on the rock surface. Now I'm fairly close to this little waterfall thing here, and there's a bit of spray coming off excuse me, a bit of spray coming off the water, and it's hitting the front of the camera. But there's one thing that I always carry in my camera bag when I photograph waterfalls or seascapes near the ocean or salt spray, and that's this. It's a shower cap. All you do, there you go, straight over the camera. Now these shower caps, you must remember, like when you go on holidays, you stay in a hotel, motel, they always give you these free shower caps. I don't know anybody who uses them, unless you've got your grandmother with you, but other than that, yeah, look, cost you nothing. They don't mind you taking them, they're giving them to you for free in hotels, motels. So that's a shower cap. You just put it over your camera like that, as you can see there, and you can still work everything. The camera, you can still see the back of the screen. Just protect your camera from this sort of spray. So that's one good free tip there for you. If you ever go to a hotel, motel on holidays, make sure you grab some of these shower caps. Just fits over the camera like that, just stops all the spray and everything carrying on. That's it, shower caps. Who would think that? Time for more images. Okay, as you can see, I've moved virtually right on top of this little feeder creek here, and I'm currently at f11. It's a 5-second exposure with ISO 50. Now, I have the circular polarizer cranked up to about 30–40%, and the more I crank it up, the slower the shutter speed, but I don't want that to happen. I don't want it too slow because you lose definition in the water. But overall, the composition here is, once again, 3 layers, 3-dimensional once again, and if you can get in that way of thinking every time you come to a location, or any location for that matter, especially when it comes to landscape photography, that you're looking for your layers, and that's part of your that's the big part of your composition. Now, I still have those ferns hanging down, they're moving, and I might have to, well, I'll definitely have to clone them out in Photoshop later on when I get back to the studio. So, but once again, this will be a nice image, 5 seconds, f11, and ISO 50. I'm on a 2-second timer here. So basically with this type of photography, it's very intimate. It's a very, you're targeting sections of the landscape and you get in very close. Hence the word intimacy with this type of photography. And it just makes for some really, really nice images. And looking at that on the back of the camera now, really, it doesn't get much better than that. Also too, with focusing, I'm always shoot in manual and I always focus in manual. When you're using the camera totally in manual mode, you've got full control of it, and with manual focusing you can pinpoint, you can get your focusing pin sharp. Autofocusing works in some instances. A lot of people flick the camera into autofocus or the lens into autofocus, and then they switch back to, they lock that focus, and then they switch over to manual focus. You can use back button focus as well, but I'll put that in another video at another time. But one thing I do suggest to get your focusing pin sharp is that on the back of the camera you have like a magnifying glass, or it looks like a tennis racket type of thing. Now when you focus, what I like to do is to hit that button there. You probably can't see it real on the camera, but you know the button I'm talking about, and that enlarges the image. Now I've got that up to 10 times. So what I like to do, I go back, bring it up, times it by 5, so it's magnified it by 5, and I focus like that, and then I hit it again to bring it up 10 times. And we focus again, we go back to normal, and the image is absolutely pin sharp. A lot of people don't know this, and I often explain that to people in my workshops that come out with me, and once they learn how to do that, they never look back. They never have any focus issues unless they make a drastic mistake. But I'll take this shot once again. I'm at f11, it's an 8-second exposure, it's not too bad. We'll take it, 2-second timer, and see what we come up with. But once again, when you come to a location, it pays to have a look around before you actually set the camera up on your tripod. Look for different aspects. It's very, very important that you do that because, well, there's the image there. Really, really nice. I can't wait to get that back home in the studio on the big screen and have a look at it. But yeah, as I was saying, have a look at the composition and look around the area. people often set up their camera on the tripod, and tripods are great, don't get me wrong, but they can also be very limiting in the fact that people will set up their tripods and then just stay there in the one position. And it's a very sad thing because they're missing out on opportunities, and in life you've got to take every opportunity that comes your way. So, and it's no different with photography. I'm going to switch the camera back over to portrait mode and try and get that channel all the way through to the back at the top of this small feeder creek here. So that should be an interesting shot. Okay, as you can see, this will be the last shot of the day. As you can see, I'm under this fallen tree, this big gum tree that I spoke to you about earlier on. I'm virtually, you probably can't see it in the camera, but in the video camera, but I'm virtually right on top of this waterfall here, this little waterfall, and it's just absolutely fantastic. It's filling the frame. I've got these two pools here, and they're a nice sort of like a blue colour, which I'll be able to bring out in post-edit when I get back to the studio in Lightroom. And this is probably going to be the best shot of the morning, I think. It's funny when you do this, you know, you think, oh, that shot's going to be great, and then you move on to the next one and you find another composition, and it just blows the other one out of the water, so to speak. So, but I'm right on top of it. I'm currently at F11, 5-second exposure. That's perfect for what I really want to do, anywhere between 2 and 8 seconds. But the average metering here today has been between 2 and 8 seconds, but 5 seconds seems to be where it's at. We'll go, well, it's shot down to 4 seconds now, but that's okay because the light's changing. And that's why it's very important to learn to shoot in manual, because you can take control. Whenever something changes very quickly, you can react very quickly when you're shooting in manual. So we'll take that shot. It's going to be very, very nice. I'll just make sure my focusing's right. Once again, we enlarge it. We look at the circular polarizer, see what we can do there, just to bring out that blue and get the sheen off the rocks. That's about how I want it. 2-second timer, and away we go. Beautiful. I don't know what the blue is here. I just don't know what it is, whether it's like a moss or I don't know. Usually moss is green, but I've never seen this before, so I can't wait till I get that back into the into Lightroom to bring out those colours. And that's, once again, that's one good thing about using a circular polarizer. I'll take a couple more shots, but that's about it all I can tell you today. I'll pack up and we'll make our way out of here up to the car. Hi guys, well thanks for coming along on this journey this morning up here in the mountains. It was very chilly when I first got here and it's still a bit cold now. Look, I hope you've learnt something from this video here this morning, especially when it comes to intimate landscape photography, where it's not all about capturing the big vistas. It's all about honing in on certain elements of the landscape, and that's why we call it intimate landscape photography. I hope you've taken things away from that, made a few notes if possible, or referred back to this video if you're not quite sure on some of the compositional tips that I gave you in this video. But it's just another facet of our photography where you can get up close and intimate with the landscape to really show what it's all about. Now also too, when you come into these pristine areas, whatever you take in with you, please take back out with you. The people that go on these treks through these mountains and wilderness areas all throughout the world, they all have a saying, leave no footprint. And that's a very, very good idea, because we want to preserve this environment for many generations to come. We are very fortunate to live in a world that nature can provide this backdrop for us. And being a photographer, I just feel privileged to be able to come into a location or live in a location like this and photograph it and bring it to the masses to show people just what we've got here, especially in Australia. So that's it for another episode of Sniper Photography. If you're new to this channel, please hit that subscribe button and the bell next door so you don't miss anything. Next week I'm doing a video on waterproof boots. I've got some boots arriving from the United States, and once I get them, I will come back out here and walk through the water and show you how good these things are. And those boots are a brand called Bogs, B-O-G-S, Bogs. So I should have them landed at my front door sometime next week. When I do, I'll put that video together. But that's it for another episode of Sniper Photography. And as I always say, be nice to yourself, family and friends. But most of all, you keep smiling, keep shooting, and bye for now.